Hello and welcome to today's webinar, The Business Intelligence Boom, Why It's Important to Bring Business Analytics Up to Par in 2020. Thanks so much for joining us. One of the top 10 strategic technology trends that Gartner has identified for 2020 is data democratization. I know everyone agrees that data is a valuable asset, and yet many organizations are still searching for a way to provide the average business user with real-time access to that data. IT managers know that providing the business users with the ability to proactively engage with key information will allow them to make better informed decisions. What we want to share with you today is what we have observed in the IBMI community in regards to BI and modernization, and then review the risk of relying on old backward compatible technology. We will talk about quick wins that you can realize with implementing a modern data access solution, and also cover some tips that you might consider when implementing a BI project. My name is Stacy Jensen. I'm the sales manager for the Business Intelligence Division here at Help Systems, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Presenting today is our BI expert, Mike Stegman. Mike is a senior data access consultant with Help Systems and has been working with SQL for almost 17 years and on the IBMI since its inception in 1988. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing great, Stacy. Thanks. I'm glad to be here, and hopefully we can shed some insights to our audience out there today.
Great, thanks. Little housekeeping about today's session. We will have a Q&A at the conclusion of the webinar. So if you have questions during the session, please send those off using that chat option. You can reach that chat option by clicking on the orange arrow at the top right-hand side of the screen. We're also recording the webinar, and we will include a link to the recording in our follow-up email. So before we get started, Mike, we have a polling question. We're just asking that you please just take a moment and consider how you are handling data access today. So we'd like you to answer all that apply to your organization. So what do you currently use for data access? I know we always have a lot of our SQL customers on our webinar. So if you're using SQL, great. IBM Query 400, programs, interactive SQL, and then of course there's always that other.
The other, yeah, the famous other. and I know I'm a little bit biased there, but every time I think of the program side, the RPG/CL program, I always think of our good friend and SQL advocate, Mr. Novitt, Carl Novitt, and how he says he hasn't written an RPG program for years. Everything he does is with our tool. So yeah, it's kind of good to know our audience, you know, where we're coming from, who we're talking to, kind of what we're focusing on. Getting some
great,
good feedback so far. Look at that.
Good. Give it maybe just a couple more seconds, and then
close it out.
Move on.
Absolutely. All right. Looks like we got a lot of voting there, so I'll go ahead and share that just real quickly. Kind of see where we're at. 50% are SQL, Query 400. A lot of programmers.
Still, there you go. A lot of people still programming.
Still programming, absolutely.
Yeah, and interactive SQL. It's definitely interesting. Well, we appreciate you doing that question for us, polling question for us. And so, Mike, I'm going to pass this off to you.
Thank you very much. Let me just a couple of clicks here, and then we should be back in business. There we go. Stacy had mentioned Gartner in her intro there. So according to Gartner, they are in case you don't know who they are, they're a worldwide research and advisory firm. The global IT spending is projected to be $3.7 trillion for 2019. 3.7 trillion. Wow, that's a small increase over 2018. They also projected the 2020 spending though will make an even bigger jump, 3.7. And about 104 billion, it's B with a billion with a B, is expected to be spent in 2020 on data analytics software alone. So of this number here for IT spending, 104 billion. Now, to me, it's not the sheer size of these numbers that catches my eye, but the fact that organizations are looking to spend more. And that means their business users are looking for more information to make better decisions. Executive VP of Technical Solutions at Help Systems, Tom Huntington, has done an IBM Marketplace survey for a few years now. It's available on our website if you want to download it at any time. But in the 2020 survey it's already been completed, but the results are being tabulated and prepared as we speak. But this slide is from the 2019 survey. It asks, what are the top IT concerns? And the order really hasn't changed too much in the past few years, but the percentages, vary a little bit. Security, still number one. The HA, high availability and disaster recovery, are number two. Modernization, that's kind of moved up a little bit. That's number three. And as you can see with that, 50% of the over 750 worldwide participants look at modernization as a top concern. About 30% are looking at analytics or business intelligence. Next to that, I also find it interesting that only 29% say that reducing IT spending is a top concern. And that's kind of good. Only 29% are looking at spending less. Now, there's also a 2018 study by the research and analytics firm called ITG that shows the ongoing cost of ownership for an IBMI is 49% less than Windows-based servers and 53% less than Linux or Oracle-based servers. So the quote old system is still the most reliable, scalable, securable on the planet. If organizations modernize the look and the feel of the results, their costs will remain under control, and their business users will have access to information they need to make good decisions. That's true democratization of data. There are at least three risks of using older tools for data access and analysis. Let me begin with time. Whether you're talking IT time in dealing with the difficult database design, IT time spent teaching users about database concept, or the user's time to open a query 400 definition, make a data selection change, resave the definition, run the query, verify the results, etc. Using older tools can lead to business decisions being made with older data. You really want something that's easy for developers to use. And then whether you have copies of query definitions or data in Excel or other PC files, you can end up with too many versions of the data. And it can be all different, right? Everything can be different. That's there's not much worse than different users or different departments making decisions with different data that has been massaged, quote, differently. And data formatting and the formulation limitations of Query 400 can lead to incomplete or inaccurate data when it's being analyzed. Query 400, that's been around for, well, almost forever. It was a quick and easy way to see your data, but it's limited by today's standards and business needs. If you wanted to do something other than to look at the data, you have limited options: print, copy, paste, use multiple steps to get it into a PC file. Now this is the same data displayed with SQL. Actually, the query definition was imported in seconds and transported into a SQL object. So to begin with, you get a more modern look. The business user has a multitude of options at their fingertips, such as save as a PC file, including Excel, print, email, creating a chart or graph, adding or changing subtotals or grand totals, drilling into the detail. And to create runtime prompts for the users to select their own data is simple to do and empowers the users to be more self-sufficient. So what are the 4 immediate wins for organizations utilizing a modern tool? Well, you stay on the most reliable, scalable, and securable system available. And in many cases, the ERP system that you use runs on the eye, even if newer versions give the users browser-based or GUI interface, right? There's nothing to move there. You're still in the same system, you're still in the same database. And as I referred to before, the cost of ownership is lower on the eye than Windows or Unix systems. Your IT does not have to add extra time to your BI project simply because of a system change. Your business users want to be self-reliant. Sometimes it's because of timing. They want information now. They want to select their own data, and often it needs to be current data. So there's a lot of times a bottleneck when all the requests for data, even a minor change to an existing report, have to go through a small group or a single person. We have a client who had an existing business user request, okay, that she'd been struggling with, and she became the bottleneck inadvertently. So while they were trialing SQL, like I said, they're a client now, but while they were trialing SQL, she determined that our tool could help her deliver the information to her users. It was a win for her and a win for her business users. And the user's output choices often vary within an organization or departments. Some want it delivered in an email, in an attachment like Excel or Word or PDF. Others want to see the data first before downloading it or emailing it. Still, others may want to have an Excel workbook with a link to the current data right in the workbook. So you want that flexibility of the output. Now moving on to the 6 tips for a successful BI project. Numbers 1 and 2, tips 1 and 2 are closely tied together. The project needs a team that includes IT and business users at varying levels, because it is they, after all, who use and analyze the data. And there should be a project leader that has the executive blessing to keep the project on task and on time. When project spans months, things change, people change, jobs change, companies' needs change, etc. There tends to be less cohesive and inclusive rollout of the BI tool. The team needs to separate business critical reporting needs from what are called nice to haves. It's kind of like buying a house, right? What are your requirements? You need 3 bedrooms, fireplace is nice. You need a 2-car garage, 3-car would be nice, whatever, nice to haves. Somewhere in between is probably the biggest area, and the one that can take input from your different functional areas within an organization. Okay, take dashboards, what we're looking at here. We've seen existing clients not realize that we have dashboard capabilities and what those dashboards can do. We have clients replacing dashboards that were created manually with some other tools or through programming, and the designer has since retired or left the company. Dashboards for some are nice to have, but it's not their focus, and that's perfectly acceptable. We always want our clients to succeed. Okay, staying with our 6 tips, number 4 takes a little more executive and technical input. Starting at the bottom here, ask, will the users be doing any of the report designing? Maybe not. It's often due to security or database skill levels. Who will use a browser versus a PC-based GUI tool? Okay. Power users. They'll have more access to the data that they need in their functional area, and they usually have a better understanding of the database structure. And of course, IT at the top, who will build the real complex reports. A good plan is to know which tools are going to be utilized by whom, where the definitions will reside, which library or IFS folder, for example. Included in this step is an examination of your IBM I users, special authority, and system access. Many times companies have too many users with all object access on the I, something that IBM and our security experts discourage. And lastly, it's rarely a good idea to reinvent the wheel for each report. Most developers know this, but a good BI project has a process for developers or report designers to know exactly where to build the report, how to have it tested and approved, where to move it once it has been approved. And the users know how to make requests for a new report or existing report changes. This leads to a better processing flow when it comes to getting applicable information into the hands of the business users who need it to make informed decisions. Now I'm going to jump over to a brief demo of SQL, and we'll see that you don't need to move to a PC-based system to have a more modern look at your data. We'll see some dashboards with some graphs and gauges, and we'll see how you can use Excel for more analysis. All right, so give me just a moment here to flip over. All right, so this is our Viewpoint tool. It's our GUI interface. If you have Windows skills, you're already ahead of the curve in learning how to do it. You have your libraries, right, that you can go to. I'm going to import a query definition to start from. I have it right on the file menu. I'll go to my query library, obviously called query lib. I'm going to pick a couple of these here, right? I'm going to pick a few of them. I'm going to do, let's grab 3 of them here. I like orders, pay date, and sales. Just held down the control key to select multiples, Windows skills, right? And here they are, just that quickly. They are now SQL objects. You can open them up, make your modifications. If you have design capabilities within the tool, you come in, you make your changes, okay? This is what it would look like. We have it open here. There's our 3 tables, 3 files. I'm old school, I still call them files, so the joins are out there. If I hit the display button, displays the data. Now, quick look at this data. It looks more modern right off the bat, right? Okay, a couple of things here though. Maybe I want to add some fields, add some information, change that derived field to give it a true name there. Things like that you can do within the definition, all done right in through here. So let's make some changes to this. I want to add another table. I'm going to use another shortcut within Viewpoint here called favorites. I've set up myself with some favorite files because I wanted to get the product description. Okay, now you see the joins there. It's a click and drag, but we have auto join. So I've told SQL how to join the files. It takes care of it for me. I'm going to bring in a new field here called class, how to mark part master, and description. Okay, just that simple. I've added a new table, new file, and 2 new fields out of that file. So here's our calculated field, right? Doing the quantity ordered times actual selling price. It's recommended to give it a derived or a name, but I don't want the user to have to worry about, what is this field? So I'm going to make it simple for them and just put it out into the column heading. I'm going to bring in another field here from our customer master, the region field. Drag it right where I want it. Move the state field over. You can see how easy, Windows skills. Double click, click and drag, moves right into where you need to go. So if you have the Windows skills, like I said, which most of us do these days, you're all set. Setting some order, resetting the order actually. I'm gonna make a change here. There we go, beautiful. Now I've reset them, they're all set the way I want it to, region first, state second, and then name. So I've taken that query definition that we've imported as a SQL object and made changes to it. Another change, we're gonna add a currency symbol. Okay, I'm in America, so my PC uses the dollar signs. If you set that up, you all can also set whether or not you want to use comma, or sometimes you have to turn off the commas because they're turned on at the database level for all numeric fields, right? And that kind of looks bad to see your order number or customer number with commas. Simple change, display the results. There's our original one over here on the left, sorry. I am directionally dyslexic at times. So on my left, I see the original and then the new one. New file added, move some fields around, new fields added, cleaned up a little bit, looks a whole lot nicer. You can make other changes. You can add subtotals. You can do, different things like that, conditional coloring. You can do a lot of different things with the results to make it more user-friendly, right? Down at the bottom is my filter or my where clause. So I'm going to take it down here. We open up this little window called the expression editor. The formula goes at the top. We give you buttons and things at the bottom of the screen here, like all the fields we've selected. So I have special fields. I get back to the file fields, which I haven't selected, or the fields that I have selected. Okay, so I'm going to use region. And I'm going to make it equal to, so I'm just going to pick one region, but it's rather than hard coding it, I'm going to put it in a variable. This makes it runtime variable prompt. And by using the same field name for the variable name, we will create it for you. And now I've built that. That's simple. Now we have that. If I hit the display, it's going to prompt me for the region number. Okay. Now, because I haven't done anything to it, I have to enter the number. I'll enter 10, and now we'll see just my customers with orders from region 10. And now we can tweak this. We can modify the variable a little bit, right? The integrity test area, we come over here, and I'm going to change it to a values list. This is great if your list is small. My regions, I only have 5, but let's say you want to leave it to just 3. Now when you hit display, I get the drop down of 1, 2, and 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3. All right. If you have more options out here, more values, what you want to do instead of rekeying it every time is to use a SQL view or a database file. Some customers need to use a view because there's some massaging you need to do of the drop-down list. So you do that in a view, refer to that view here. You can also refer to a file. That's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come into my database, switch my list to files. I'm actually going to use the customer master, which I'm using inside the SQL definition, and just tell it to use the region field within the file. Okay, so I'm using region out of the customer master for my drop-down list, and there's now I have all 5 regions, right? Let me pick region 40 here, go ahead and run it. So just that quickly, taking a query, now I'm doing it all from here, and I've already saved it because I brought it in, but I'm going to do a save as, again, a Windows thing. So real simply, creating a new one, calling it orders 2, right? You can change the description if you need to. Now, it's not often that the data is just laying there ready for you to access, right? Sometimes you have to actually build different types of joins, derived or calculated fields. Here's one that's doing a summary, okay? And so I'm using the sum function. Grouping is also what it's referred to as. So I'm summarizing some fields, doing a couple of different calculation fields, that type of thing. If I had more files or more tables, it would be at the top. If I had my where clause, it would also be in here. But I'm just summarizing this. Whenever something is using a sum min max average or count, you get dynamic drill down. So from one view, I can now drill into others. I can drill into that data. So now I'm going to pick the state. So I picked the Midwestern region, and I'm looking at the gross profit by region. Now I'm going to look at the gross profit for the Midwestern region by state. So I drilled into that region, and I can continue to go depending on how much information. All of that was built when you click on your Files and Fields tab, the graphical side, we build the SQL for you behind the scenes. Okay, let's take another look here. I have this one called cash flow. And this one's using a union. Looks kind of complex here, but it's not really that bad. Copy and paste is great. You can go in and out of the Files and Fields tab to build it. And when the user runs it, right, if you're not familiar what a cash flow is, there's a little bit of work going on. Like I said, the data is not just laying there saying, hey, show me my cash flow. But you can build complex, powerful definitions with SQL. Okay, so a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. There's one more I want to show here. Developers sometimes will ask, well, where do you do a subquery? Well, in SQL, you do it in the where clause. So I'll just show you real quickly what it looks like. Here's the results showing this. I'm looking at all of the current balance due for all my customer if it's over the average for that. So I can go into design, but another way to look at the SQL is I can go into the properties. It's right here, just a simple little way. Can't change it from here, I'm just looking. But here you can see that my where clause says where the amount due is greater than, and then it does a sub-select, the subquery right in here, where it's selecting the average of the amount due from the customer master file and comparing that against the amount due, all right? So subquery is pretty powerful, give you the results you need. A lot of cool things there. A lot of power capabilities that you can do. Okay, we also have other things. We have tables, right? But I'm going to skip the tables now. We have had other webinars for tables. I'm going to jump into dashboard. So here's a new one, right? You get this white screen. I call it a canvas, and you start inserting stuff. It doesn't really matter too much the whole order you go into. I'm going to go into my SQL demo. I'm going to add a view. You can type it in if you know, or you can just hit enter, pull in a list. I typed in AR because that's the view I wanted. You can see that one has some colors, some conditional colors on the weighted average column, and then some totals down at the bottom. And I'm going to create some charts. I'm going to take the total AR column and create a chart. The chart exists right now on the dashboard. So the view is there and the chart or graph is there. You can change it. You're not locked into the one type. I can go to a bunch of different types, right? I can choose different types. And you can also use the toolbar. I like using the toolbar often because you can make more changes all at once. So I can change it from use a 2D or a 3D just by hitting the apply. Depending on which value you pick, some of these different tabs will have different options, right? So if you're choosing a pie, the style won't say horizontal or vertical, okay? But you can change titles. You can change the position of the legend from the left or the right. It always takes the leftmost column with whatever you've highlighted. So sometimes you need to change the titles of that. Again, the position of the legend, throw it here at the bottom. So you can do those types of things with the graph controls that you have here. Okay, now just as a matter of practice, again, I like to resize, approximate where I'm going to do. Sometimes there's a little trial and error, but I like to turn off the toolbar. You can also hide the toolbar at runtime. So the toolbar will go away and then the border can go away. I really like turning off the border for graphs and gauges. That's just me. You know, I don't want to see the border. Let's go ahead and insert another SQL object. Let's go put in the one that we just built a moment ago. I put it into my work library called Business Intel. And it was called Orders 2. Go ahead and click open. Now this one has a prompt. So it's prompting me for my region. Remember, we just built this. So I'm just going to pick 10, but it's asking me if I wanted to keep that value 10 with the dashboard. No, I want the user to be prompted every time. So when I say no, don't keep it, prompt me every time. So again, it runs the view and I place it wherever I want or need on the view. And again, you can move things around relatively simply. You can hide data. So if I didn't want that AR data to be there, I can just simply hide it, right? Sometimes it's good to have it there. Sometimes it's not. If you're going to let the user drill down into it, take it to Excel, you know, things like that, you might want to have the data. Sometimes graphs are just perfectly fine, or different types of objects. I'm going to put a label out here called the text box. So you're building this. Like I said, when you come in, you get this blank screen, the blank canvas, and then you start putting in whatever you need to. You change the font here. I like my labels to be a little bit bigger. Could be my age and my eyesight, but 8 or 10 is sometimes too small, so I go a little bit bigger for that. Sometimes you want a little smaller data if you're labeling something. Then you want to save it now. If you're going to have a user look at it from the browser, you have to save it as a system.i object. I recommend doing that anyway. Okay, you can always make a shortcut to that on your desktop, on the user's desktop, so they can run it directly from the browser shortcut on their desktop. But now that it's a system.i object, give it a 10-character name, give it a description, whatever I want to call it, and hit save. Now we've saved it. Now it's ready to run from Viewpoint, which we're in here, or it's ready to run from the browser. Now, some of our browser dashboards, our customers, I've stole this concept from a customer, ran it from a shortcut. It's just nothing but buttons, right? We also have an Explorer that you can use. It's very similar to Viewpoint. So I can come out over here, put in my library that you see there, Business Intel, go down to my Managers Daily that I just built. Let me resort these here by type. Sometimes that puts them more in the order I want to see. Boom, display the results. Double click or right click, display the results. Same thing, just like in Viewpoint. Here's my prompt for the region. Pick my region. Go ahead and click OK. Now, if I had built a graph over that data, the graph would have adjusted. If I'd have had a gauge out there, that would have done. So here's coming back to my menu here. So a lot of customers are starting to use this dashboard as a menuing system. And there it is. I just clicked on a different one. And you see this one has some gauges on the left, different types of graphs, some data with drill downs. There's the dynamic drill downs as well as an application, buttons that can take me to other places. You know, a lot of different things out over here. Another dashboard. This one has a prompt right in the front. The previous one didn't have that prompt. It just ran. This one had a prompt right in the dashboard, kind of like the one we built. Okay, so now I'm going to I'm looking at a couple of things here are for everybody, but the graph at the bottom and the data on the right are just for one particular sales rep. So if I hit the reprompt, I can change my year or my sales rep, and it reruns. So I have all of that. So I have that reprompt button, and everything that's on there that's related to that will change. Okay, so it totally reprompts it. Nice, easy way to do it. Now I have some pre-built ones here in my demo library. I'm going to come out over here, going to filter from the Explorer. So I'm looking at demo library. Okay, I have a couple of different options here. Like again, going to run it. This one here is stole from our Australian office. That's why it says Melbourne, Sydney, etc. But it's set for auto refresh. So I can have this on a big screen sitting there, and every 30 seconds or so it goes out and reruns it. And as the data changes, I get new information. Okay, that's one of the abilities of a dashboard. Another one we have here is bringing off images from the IFS. So here I'm going to pick my warehouse, and all of the data that's being displayed reflects to that warehouse, and then I have an image of Illinois in this case. So if I change my warehouse to California, now my image of the state is going to change as well. So just a little trick there. You can also do that within a view where you can have it where it pulls up driver's pictures. If you're in the trucking industry, it can pull up product pictures if you have those. Again, those are pulled from the IFS from folders out there, nice and easy. Doesn't just matter of you putting them out there. Yes, prompts, so you can have the different data. Now, when you do have the data being run from the browser, look what the user has. I showed this on the PowerPoint, right? I can go right to Excel. I can print. I can email it, right? And I can send it, including Excel, RTF, PDF. I can send it right from here. I can create a chart. I can add subtotals if they weren't in the definition that I'm running. So there's a lot that a user can do with the data. They can't design any new definitions. There's no design capabilities from the browser side. But here they are. Now I got totals just real quickly going into subtotals, and now I have that data. So there's a lot a user can do with the browser. Gives them that empowerment, right? Nothing to install on the PC, nothing to update or whatever. They have a browser. We support the big four, right? If you will. So we have all that. The user just runs it, and they can then start playing with the data. They can see it, look at it, be done with it, or they can add subtotals, add graphs, save off the graphs for a presentation, or send in an email. There's several options that you can do. You can say, here I'm doing a subtotal, or I'm counting some fields, subtotaling other fields. That's what I like to do with my data sometimes. It's just kind of play with it a little bit. I call it playing with it, right? You're really analyzing it, okay? Let me go look at all of my objects now within the library, right? I can do SQL views, SQL reports, SQL tables. All of those things can be done within the designer viewpoint and then displayed right from here. And then I don't have to go into them if I'm going to email them or if I'm going to save it as a PC file. Some people like to see the data before they save it or email it. Others just send it off. Okay, let's come back over here to Viewpoint. Same options. I can run it and get the toolbar, or I have my PC options right here from our Viewpoint screen, right? Save results as a PC file. All the PC options, Excel included. Text, DBF, Lotus, HTML, XML, etc. Okay, all of that from Viewpoint or from the browser. Email, printing, either to a PC printer or an output queue. Right, you can do your to CCs, BCC, subject, text, scheduling. If you have Robot Scheduler, it comes up. If you don't, it goes to the IBM job schedule. I can create an entry in here and just right away just schedule this. So then the user will get the Excel workbook. Speaking of Excel, we have a Viewpoint add-in. So I'll come and open up Viewpoint, open up Excel, go to the Viewpoint add-in, and I have add a view. goes to my default system wisdom. I can type in or click from the list of my libraries. I want to go to my demo. And again, there's my good friend AR, right? So if I click on browse, I get a list of all of them. I can choose from the list, or if I know the name. So developer, designer builds a view. The user can then open up Excel, go to the Viewpoint tab, add it, and they get the results right in Excel, right? You can also save the definition. So here's an example I have on my desktop. That's an Excel workbook that has embedded Viewpoint link. So I say, yes, I want to refresh it. And here you can see that I'm looking at the Western states in this cust list P. I also have two other tabs with other orders, with other data on it, but the prompts relate to this, the data that we're seeing here. So I'm going to change it to Midwestern. Notice how the totals get pushed down. The percentage of totals get recalculated. The graphs are all rebuilt. AR didn't have any prompts, but I have all the data. Here's my data dump of the orders, which I built a pivot table over. Now I'm in Excel's world, but the data is current as of just a couple seconds ago. I clicked on it and downloaded it just that quickly. So there's a lot that you can do with that. With the Excel add-in, you can take a lot of different information for your users. Okay, so now I'm going to summarize real quickly what we just talked about. There we go, a little recap on this. So whether you're converting your old IBMI queries or building SQL definitions from scratch, you can create powerful and flexible results for your users. Customizable dashboards allow you to create and share KPIs from Viewpoint or from a browser. Dashboards can combine that key data that you need all in one place. You saw how easy it was to take the data into Excel. Empowerment is making the information easy and flexible for your users. We've mentioned a couple times democratization of the data, right? That's important these days. They will be relying less on IT for reports, and IT therefore can be more productive. Using SQL and the IBMI together provide the peace of mind that every IT manager should have. There's no doubt that SQL is a solution that has many advanced functions available for when you need them. That's all I got.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for sharing the information and providing us with a demo. I think we have one quick question for our attendees before we get to our Q&A. So we'd like to know if you would like to see more SQL with a one-on-one demonstration. So if you want to let us know either yes, maybe, or maybe timing's just not good right now. So if you wouldn't mind answering that, we'll just leave that up there for a few more seconds.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I do like to say when there's so much in SQL, right? Stacy and Suzette and I have been working with it for a long, long time, and there's so much out there that I don't know if one customer is using all of it, right? So if you see something that kind of piques your interest, or if we said something that kind of piques your interest, it's a good idea to kind of at least take a look at it, see if it'll meet your needs. No pressure, give our free trial a whirl. We'll work with you during that trial period. And a lot of times you'll see how easy it is to build, import your queries, and to kind of get away from doing things interactive SQL or having to program, things like that, with all your compile steps and everything.
Yep. So we can close that out and move on to our Q&A. We have a couple questions, so if you still have any questions, please go ahead and use that chat feature. We've got a little time here to, yeah, you're right. Question feature, not chat feature. Exactly.
Yeah, I'll actually see them both, but yeah, the question feature will have a nice
right
format there.
Yeah. So the first question, probably because it was one of the last things that you showed, was on that Excel add-in, and what is needed to use the Excel add-in within SQL.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's pretty simple. You do need to have Viewpoint installed on the person's PC. So Viewpoint installs on any PC. You do need to have either client access if you're on Windows 7 or ACS, Access Client Solutions, if you're on Windows 10. Have that configured. You load Viewpoint. Then when you install Viewpoint, you choose Custom instead of typical, one of the options under there is to do the Excel add-in. You choose that option, then you'll have that. It's that simple to do. If you've already have current Viewpoint installed, just reinstall it and choose the custom versus typical, and then you'll get that option to go out there and do it. And you can have Viewpoint, you can have your users, if you're concerned about loading Viewpoint on someone's PC, you can set that user profile to not be allowed to design within Viewpoint. So even though Viewpoint's there, they can't. All they can do is run stuff. So it's pretty easy to do within SQL.
Good point. Yeah, great, thanks. So we have another question here, and it is about importing the AS400 queries. Would you recommend importing all the queries at once?
Probably not. Most customers, most people by now have a lot of queries. People have used queries. Like I said, it's been around forever. It uses some IBM functionality and some SQL functionality together. So you might encounter something odd within some queries. So I would recommend do it in either individually or smaller chunks. And another reason is you might have ended up with multiple queries, right, that are duplicates with just a slight selection change, right? Someone put in a different company, a different account, a different date range, something like that, and saved it differently. You don't want to import all of those, right? Just pick one of them, put a prompt out there, and then you'll have less objects when you're done. So no, I usually don't recommend doing it all at once. You want to just, to lower your number of definitions, you want to kind of go through and pick the ones that are urgent, the people run all the time, that are the business critical business needs versus the nice to haves, right? Talked about that. So I would not recommend doing that all at once.
Okay, great. Thanks for that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is it for the questions. Mike, thank you. Nice job with the demonstration and great information. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it and hope you have a great day.
Thanks everyone.